STEM City USA Healthy Doses series is your passport to a balanced lifestyle. Hosted by Dr. Tiffany Anderson and presented in the Boston Scientific Auditorium. And now, Dr. Tiffany Anderson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Healthy Doses, brought to you by Boston Scientific. My name is Rayondon Kennedy, and I will be your moderator for today's show. Healthy Doses is really a show that we created to give our audience the resources and tools that they need to really be the best version of themselves that they can be. And so right now, I want to introduce today's, this series host, really, Dr. Tiffany Anderson.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Healthy Doses. I am your host, Dr. Anderson. It's always a pleasure, right? So every Saturday, we are here providing therapeutic tools. We are here to really just kind of encourage you, like Ray said, to be your best self, but also to prioritize your emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. Right? So today, we are diving into anxiety, with also a bit of stress, right? We're going to hop in some stress here and there because oftentimes it does kind of happen alongside of each other. And I want us to be able to distinguish that today. But I just want you all to first start thinking about how stress impacts your life, especially surrounding the pandemic, surrounding just everyday life and the current events that are happening. I just want you to kind of take that in right now and start thinking about the ways stress happens for you.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. We got to pay some bills because we gotta hold this rent up for STEM City USA. So we'll be right back after a special message from our Boston Scientific sponsors.
Hi. Just really excited to get my hands dirty and just get to work on the digital health platform.
To gain some more hands-on experience in the areas of accounting and finance.
Learn a bunch of new information that I probably was not exposed to previously.
I need to work on real-life projects and to apply the skills that I've learned in my degree.
Medical devices has always been a dream of mine.
Learning about SAP, forecasting, and just supply chain as a whole.
Really excited to actually be able to do it with actual people who are being impacted by the company and the products.
Connecting with people from all over the country and all over the world.
Learn, adapt, and apply something to Boston Scientific.
Just being part of the BSC's inclusive culture.
See how my engineering degree can be put to use in the industry.
Just getting as much experience within quality systems as possible.
Having a lot of fun and helping out people at the same time.
Expanding my network and seeing how my coursework is applied to the real world.
Learn more about the different roles. So there's manufacturing, there's quality, there's R&D, there's people that work in the lab, and all of them are in this building.
A great opportunity for me to learn and grow as an engineer.
And I know it's going to be a fantastic summer.
Welcome back. I'm really excited to jump into this topic on anxiety with Dr. Anderson. But before we get started, I want to just give you a couple of tips. In the top right-hand corner, you're going to see a QR code. If at any point you have any questions for Dr. Anderson that you want us to try to answer, take your camera, scan that code, and enter the question that you wanted. We might have time during the Q&A portion to address those questions. If you are watching in STEM City, as you can see right now, I am in the La Familia Health and Wellness Building lobby. If you're watching here in STEM City, USA, you'll see a chat button on the left-hand side, and you can communicate, you can chat with whoever is in there watching with you. So please feel free to kind of engage with the community and just let your presence known. Let us know if you like the show, if you don't like the show, any comments or anything like that. We want to hear from you. So use the comments, engage with the audience, and really just enjoy the show. With all that being said, Dr. Anderson, let's jump into this topic on anxiety.
All righty. So, Ray, when you think of anxiety, or not even think, when you feel anxiety, oftentimes it's this kind of persistent, excessive worry or fear about everyday situations, right? For example, when we're thinking about financial issues, we're thinking about the job, right? Our children, we're thinking about our career, we're thinking about our parents, right? We're thinking about our community, we're thinking about um, our state, our world, and how that is looking, which, there's some concerns there. Right? There's these everyday situations that can evoke this sense of dread or fear or worry in us, right? And so that is oftentimes how anxiety works. And if we're not careful, it can get worse, right? And it can look more like chronic anxiety, where it just builds and builds and builds, and that has a whole slew of physical ailments that are attached to that, right? Also, I think anxiety has been kind of normalized, where it's just kind of an everyday experience for many of us. And I recognize that, and I even deal with anxiety myself and have dealt with it my entire life, right? So a lot of my own struggles has been a lot of reality testing. Not so that is testing your reality that says what is happening, like what is my reality and what are my fears? What is my reality? Okay. For example, okay, I failed a test. That is my reality. My fear is I'm gonna fail every test that I ever taken, and I'm gonna drop out of college and my whole life is ruined. Right? That is not our reality. That's simply our fear. That is our anxiety. Right? So a lot of the tools that we're utilizing is our reality testing that says what is in fact happening, and what is in fact just simply our fear.
So, Dr. Anderson, you touched on something that I kind of want you to drill down a bit, and that's kind of the physical symptoms. So you talked about what anxiety is and kind of what causes it and kind of, but if what does that look like physically? Like, what do people experience? Like, how can I identify, I got some anxiety in this situation. What does that look like?
Yes.
And like everything in my last, this is a spectrum. So can we talk about kind of what that looks like on both mild anxiety versus severe?
That obviously will change from person to person, but just kind of a generalized kind of overview. I can't say mild or severe in regards to the fast heartbeat, right? Because that is a big one. Like rapid heartbeat, like heart palpitations. That can be for mild, and that can also be for severe. Rapid breathing is another one that may tell you, okay, you are in a state of angst in this moment. Sweating, we know that. Sweating pops or just sweating under our arms or just over our bodies, like that is also a sign of anxiety or angst. Also feeling exhausted, like chronic fatigue would be on the side of like severe anxiety, where you're always tired, always exhausted, feel as if you just can't get out the bed or do your day-to-day kind of activities, right? That aligns with the severe, but feeling tired is also along the mild spectrum as well, and how it can show up for many folks. When I think of her personally, um, uh, like perseverating over my thoughts, over my concerns, over my worries, right? Over and over to the point as if, you can't really focus. You can't really kind of hone in on what you're doing because you're so concerned about what potentially may happen or about what you're thinking about. Yeah. So that's a personal one. Not being present. I don't know if you share this, but kind of being in a room with a lot of people, but not being there. Yeah. So that can show up as anxiety, but also like social anxiety, right? There's various forms of anxiety, but overall anxiety, like not being present and in your body in that moment, is another way it shows up for me and other folks. So it depends on the person, but that is just a few that show up. I'm just trying to think if there's more for me.
I have a question for you, Doc. When we talk about anxiety, and this is something that I often throw around in my head, is the relationship between anxiety and fear. Is anxiety a product of fear, or is anxiety interchangeable with fear? Like, what's the relationship between the two? Like, how do they kind of go hand in hand?
Yeah, kind of decide, like, is this so fear and anxiety often occur together, right? Naturally. They occur together oftentimes, but I wouldn't say they're interchangeable, because fear is like an intense biological response in your body to like immediate danger. While anxiety is more of like an emotion regarding things we think may happen. Remember when I was talking about reality testing, right? So our anxiety is like future based. It's the what if. That's what drives us. The what if. What if my car breaks down? What if I don't get the job? What if my parents get sick? What if I miss my flight? What if I get sick? We're in a pandemic, right? Like, that is anxiety. That is, we are living in a new normal. And folks are in a constant state of anxiety. So anxiety, you think of more of just the emotion of what could happen or what if, and then fear is more immediate. It's a biological response in your body that says we're like, I'm in danger in this moment. The thing about fear, though, is our bodies can respond as if we are in immediate danger, although we are not. Does that make sense? So
Say that one more time for people in the back.
for the folks in the back. So the thing about fear is that our bodies may respond as if it is immediate danger, when it is not. Does that make sense? And so there are times where we have conditioned ourselves, or we've been conditioned. I like that. We've been conditioned. Certain environments we grew up in, certain traumas, right? Our bodies are then conditioned to feel immediate danger, right? Even when there's not. So even a thought or a flashback can feel as if we are in potential harm in that moment. And so fear also varies from person to person, where you may say, why did they react like that? Because in their body, they are in immediate danger, although in the reality, they're not.
So let's bring this in and talk about, kind of like, make a real world connection.
Okay.
You know, we're just going through a pandemic, COVID, and had the fear and the anxiety that comes along with, in the heart of it, going outside or being in a public place and really having the anxiety of getting through it. And so I guess my question is, as we fast forward to today, can we be in a state of anxiety for so long that we become used to it? And if we become used to it or numb to it, is it gone, or is it still there? Is it still affecting us? Or have we just kind of, is the threat of anxiety gone when we're no longer thinking about it or numb to it?
That's a great question. So it's not gone. It's not gone. It's not gone. Just because we don't identify certain things that are happening within our bodies or even in our life doesn't mean they disappear, right? We know that with life circumstances. It doesn't disappear because we don't address it. That's the same thing with anxiety. It's still there. It's still present in your body. You just have become kind of immune to it in a certain way, or you've learned how to function with anxiety, right? So there's a lot of folks, I think, including myself, that have high functioning anxiety, right? Where they're able to accomplish certain things and have families and careers and do all these things in life, but they're still dealing with anxiety within their bodies, right? And a lot of times the thing is with anxiety, it still impacts our decision making, our impulses, where folks may be extremely impulsive because they have anxiety and they have not, addressed it. But there is definitely many of us that are living with it, and I don't, that have normalized it. Like, this is just my life. This is just how I'm going to kind of operate in the world. And there's no judgment around that, because I do recognize, like, we are in a high state of angst in the society, you know? My hope and desire is that we come to a place where we recognize that it does not have to be normalized, and that we can navigate the world in a new space and with more peace and more intention. But I do see it a lot when, you know, working with clients, that anxiety has become just kind of like an everyday encounter.
I want to talk about, you know, we've been talking about anxiety, right? We talked about the effects, what it feels like. What are the dangers? Because obviously, like you said, there's a lot of people high functioning. Like, we all have anxiety, but there's a reason why this is a serious topic today. What are some of the dangers of anxiety, or having anxiety, or prolonged anxiety? What are some of the effects? So the dangers.
Yeah. So there's quite a few. The ways in which anxiety manifests in people's lives looks differently across the board, obviously. A few, though: muscle tension, right? So folks that have anxiety, think about if you have aches and pains in the body. Think about where you store your stress in your body. Is it your shoulders? Is it your womb? Or is it your joints? Like, where do you have that pressure? For me, it's all shoulders. You know, when folks say, "Oh, you're so tense." Okay, that's literally me, right? So folks store their anxiety in their bodies, right? And so think about where it's stored. So we have muscle tension, we have pain in the body, sometimes unexplained pain, where we go to the doctors and we're looking for a cure, and they can't find it. A lot of times that is our own bodies telling us that something's wrong, but it's not something that the doctor can cure. Remember, you said long-term effects? That's a long-term effect of anxiety, where you're in chronic pain and you cannot find it. That's a long-term effect. Soreness, migraines, joint aches, even sometimes acne. Well, I mean, it's so many things. Acne, the way it can show up through your, you know, cortisol, that stress hormone, the way it can show up on your body and on your face. Compulsive actions is another thing, because the thing about anxiety, right, is that when we are in a state of fight or flight, right, our bodies, it's telling us that we don't need to think, we just need to fight, run, and freeze, because some folks do freeze. When we are in that state, our brains are not working to the optimal level, because we don't need to think to survive. Does it make sense? We just need to move. And so compulsion can come from that, because you're not thinking about the best solution. You're just in a state of fight or flight. And we see that a lot. And then I'm going to give you one more. Sleep problem. We can interrupt our sleep.
Oh no, we don't want that too.
Yeah. But think about it. To sleep requires a state of calmness and peace. You cannot turn off your brain. It is extremely hard for people to sleep and to go down. So that's a big one, sleep issues. But you're right. We do not want to interrupt our sleep, because that's a whole nother thing. We need our sleep. We need our sleep.
Dr. Anderson, before we go to our next break, I want to cover, we just talked about a lot of the problems, right? A lot of how to identify it. What are some solutions? You know, when you're in these situations, how can we kind of override or overcome, besides just kind of, I'll tell you what I do when I'm in, I'm kind of in the kind of run towards my fears, run towards the anxiety. And so I run straight into it. But that may not always be the the proper way to address it. So what are some healthy solutions to dealing with anxiety?
Yeah. I'm curious though, Ray, you said run into it, like you go towards it. Like if you're anxious, you go towards what's causing your anxiety.
Yes, because I figured it's only one way. You got to go through it. Otherwise, it's going to be in front of you like forever.
I like that. That's a good one. That's actually a great tool, right? That's actually a great tool because the opposite of that is procrastination, which is also an emotional response, you know? Yeah. And we can get into that another, I think, episode about procrastination because that's a good one. That's actually a real good one. But yes, so you go towards. Thank you for adding that. That's actually a great solution because, like you said, you have to go through it. You have to go through it. Something that I also say as a tool that's just coming up for me in this moment is giving yourself time to do it. So sometimes, you know, you have to do something, but you're anxious. Take a step away. Don't do it in that moment if you cannot, because you may cause more damage in that time frame. Does it make sense? So take a step back. If you're going towards something, if an email, I know emails cause a lot of people anxiety. So if I'm not in that state and I have time, like a day or two, I just won't do it that day. Or I'll take an hour, or I'll just step away and say, you know what? It's just not the right time. And then the next day, I just may be in a better headspace, maybe in a better mood where I'm like, oh, now I can knock out this email. I can do what I needed to do. And so that's a tool. Step away. Step away. If certain things are just causing you angst in the moment, take a break from it. You don't have to do it in that moment. Another thing, a big thing, breathing exercises. So learning how to breathe from your diaphragm and breathing out. And you can do that several times, right? I always do it in like a 1 or 2 minute interval, but just taking deep breaths and allowing our bodies to come down. Because remember when I talked about fight or flight, you're not thinking the way we need to. So you have to allow your body to come back to a state of rest for you to be able to kind of move forward in the way you want to. So deep breathing is a good one. Meditation is an excellent one. Exercising, can't stress that enough, because we're being fueled with cortisol, which is very unhealthy for the body, that stress hormone. So through exercise, you can really release a lot of the angst out of your body naturally and kind of force yourself to become at rest. And there's a lot of endorphins that go off and dopamine when you're exercising. And that's the natural feel-good chemical in your body. So exercising is a wonderful, wonderful way. Also, social support. Who's within your community? Who's in your social, who's your social system? Who's your accountability partner? Who can you talk to when you are feeling stressed or anxiety? Who's your therapist, right? Who's your life coach, right? Like we need to have certain systems that are in place that allow us to get back to a healthy state of mind. And I can't stress social systems enough. I really, 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 really cannot stress that. With the pandemic, a lot of folks went into isolation. And so their angst was also associated with being alone, right? And not feeling as if they had the support. So your social system, very, 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 very important. And lastly, Ray, I'm going to say, I want you all to think about what you're thinking about. Think about what you're thinking about.
I'm going to need you to define that one, Dr. Anderson.
How
am I think about what I'm thinking about?
Yes. Earlier, I was talking about how I tend to perseverate over a thought or an issue, right? When I take the time to say, what are you thinking about? Okay, you're thinking about the possibility of your car breaking down, right? Thinking about that. Okay, you're thinking about the possibility of your car breaking down. Okay. Has it happened? Can you do anything to change that or prevent that? If not, let it go. Right? So if we wrote down a list of things, right? If we wrote down a list of things of what we're concerned about, struggling with, the ones that you cannot change, the ones you can't do anything about, I want you to take those off your list, because you're losing time and energy off of things that you have no control over. So take those off your list, right? So you're thinking about what you're thinking about. So write a list, the things that you cannot control, take them off your list, because you're worrying and losing time and beautiful moments from things that you cannot change. So think about what you're thinking.
All right, Dr. Anderson, you just gave us a handful of solutions to use if you're dealing with anxiety. So if you talked about stepping away, if something's bringing you anxiety, you have a task, if you have time within the time limit, take a step back and really just kind of take yourself out of the situation and then revisit at a different time. You talked about breathing exercises. We hear a lot about that. So take a deep breath in, 10 seconds in, 10 seconds out, to really kind of calm your heart rate and really just kind of evaluate the situation instead of going right in. Exercise is a really, really good tool. I recommend hitting the heavy bag. There's a lot of high tense situations, and sometimes you just got to take it out, but you don't want to take it out on a person. But if you can get that stress out, go for a run, hit the heavy bag or something like that. That's what I would do. Then that's really helpful. Seeking support, whether it's therapy, whether it's your family, a mentor, or your faith-based group, having that community around to really support you, to kind of help you in those situations. And then my favorite, what you were talking about, think about what you're thinking about. Really just kind of think about what's causing you. What's the thought that's giving you that anxiety, and just analyzing it. Can you do anything about it? A lot of the time, there ain't nothing we can do about it, Dr. Anderson. And so if you can't do anything about it, then you can't let it kind of manifest and just take place in your mind. A coworker of mine, always says, this situation doesn't have the real estate. It doesn't have it can't afford the real estate in my brain. And so that means I can't do with this. It's not doing anything for me. It's got to go. And so you got to push it out your head. And so I really enjoy that. And so, Dr. Anderson, before we continue this, because I have one more thing before we get into, I have one more question for you from me before we get into the Q&A that's been coming in from our audience. And so I'm going to go to a really quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
Challenges. We all face them, but some people are drawn to them, inspired by them, transformed by them. To those drawn to challenges, there's no time to wait for someone else to solve them. Accepting this path means accepting all of the difficulties that it comes with. The obstacles, the relentless persistence and dedication, carrying patient cases in our minds and in our hearts. We're always pushing forward, working with you to answer these challenges, working as fast and as focused as we can, with the highest standards of quality and support to help you give your patients better care for healthier lives. We know that by listening, learning, and working together, we can overcome any obstacle in our way. The future requires relentless innovation and celebrates those willing to face challenges. When we challenge, we harness strengths, drive ingenuity, and expand potential. When we challenge the possibilities, we improve the health of people around the world. Because when we challenge, we advance. Boston Scientific. Advancing science for life.
And we're back. Thank you to Boston Scientific, who is the sponsor of Healthy Doses. Before we jump back in, I just want to remind you that if you are in STEM City, if you're here in the La Familia Health and Wellness building, there should be a chat button on the side of your screen. I hope you guys are using it. I hope you guys are communicating and engaging with each other, and really utilizing this great metaverse space that we have here in STEM City. And also, now we're about to get into the Q&A portion. If you have any questions, feel free to use the QR code in the top corner of your screen, scan it with your phone, and really just drop us a line or question, and we'll see if we can get to it before we end the show. And so before we left, Dr. Anderson, I had a question because I'm a former athlete, right? And before every game, you know, there's that butterflies in your stomach, you know, you kind of get out there before you kind of shut your mind off and go to like, you know, what you've been practicing. And so I've been taught to kind of use that anxiety to kind of push me forward, use that anxiety to kind of, you know, help me find success on the field when I'm playing. And so my question is, we talked about a lot of negatives surrounding anxiety. Is there a positive side of anxiety or being able to use anxiety for your benefit?
That's a great question. Yes, it is. It is. So I want to say first that anxiety and fear are natural emotions, right? There's never going to be a time, well, I don't ever say never because some folks are unique. But there are very few folks that never feel any angst or fear. Very few, right? Because it is a common state of emotions, right? So anxiety can be used in a positive way. And oftentimes it is. So it's interesting, right? Because our brains oftentimes don't, the way it processes kind of like excitement and fear is very similar. Like it kind of registers similarly, right? And so oftentimes when you read the research, it says like trick your brain into saying like this isn't fear, this is excitement, because we really don't know. We really don't know. Our brains process it in the same area. And so anxiety, like for instance, the show, right? I get a bit angst starting it, but that angst also drives me to show up as my best self. It also encourages me to live in my gifts and to provide the support and services that I would want to receive, right? For you, it like pushes you to go out on that field and do your best. It gives you focus, like laser focus. Anxiety can do that. So can excitement, right? Give you kind of laser focus and this kind of internal drive to just want to perform. Yeah. So it can absolutely be used in a positive way. And I encourage folks when you are anxious, for you to say, like, how can I use this in the best way, right? So it's not taking away, but it's kind of giving you something in that moment. And if that is like that laser focus, if that is that presence that we all need to kind of show up, then allow it to be used in that way instead of allowing our negative self-talk to show up before like our excitement.
That's awesome, and I hope that helps some athletes out there, or just helps people kind of get through some situations that they're dealing with in their day. So, Dr. Anderson, I have a few questions that are here, and let's see if we can get through a few of them. And so, our first question is: we talked about anxiety, but are there different types of anxiety? You know, what types of anxiety disorders are there?
There's many. Let me see. So the ones I get the most, social anxiety is a big one, right? So that's kind of, just fear in certain social environments overall, right? We have, and it just depends on how this will show up, but panic disorder, certain phobias, right? Those are, we have generalized anxiety, everyday anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorder, PTSD. There's a bunch. There's a bunch. I'm not here to obviously diagnose anyone, and I don't want you all, diagnosing yourself. Definitely go to a professional, but there are various types of anxiety disorders.
Our next question is: how do I know that my feelings of anxiety have escalated to a point where I need to seek help, or it is now a problem and it's not just an everyday thing?
You said that it's now a problem and not just an everyday thing. I think if it's an everyday thing, it may be a problem. Yeah. Remember we were talking about kind of how we normalize anxiety? Yeah. So that's a great question. That's a really great question, because a lot of us are trying to decipher is this just life? Is this just an everyday encounter that I'll have? I think something we can use is saying, if this never changed, could I live a healthy lifestyle? If I never got any kind of support surrounding this angst that I feel in my body every day, am I living a healthy life? If the answer is no, then that may be a telltale sign that it is a problem and that they may need additional support. Yeah, because I want us to be careful to not necessarily normalize anxiety, but it's hard because it's a natural emotional state, right? But again, remember we were talking about those symptoms and the ways in which it manifests. Thinking about those, if we're having heavy breathing or even panic attacks, or if we're getting to a place where every day we're having those heart palpitations or sweaty palms or constantly in fight or flight, we know that when we feel as if we are in danger. If that's an everyday situation, then that is considered a problem. Like, I don't want us to get to a place where we normalize that, because we shouldn't be in a state of anxiety to the point that we're perceiving danger every day. Like, we should definitely get some support surrounding that.
Dr. Anderson, I have one more question before we close out today's show. And the question is, can anxiety be coupled with other mental health issues like depression?
Yes, that's a beautiful question. Anxiety is often associated with depression. It doesn't have to be, but it often is associated with depression. Oftentimes they work hand in hand, especially with anxiety disorders. It oftentimes looks like anxiety with depression or coupled with depression, right? And it's just the ways our body kind of responds, and similar ways are the way they kind of, they respond with each other. And so it doesn't always have to happen, but yes, it can be coupled with depression or PTSD or social, and like it absolutely can. And we see it all the time.
Dr. Anderson, this has been such a great conversation. And like some of the audience members have stated, this is much needed and really, really helpful to the community. And so I want to thank everybody for watching. But before we leave, Dr. Anderson, what do you want to leave the audience with? What do you want them to take away from this conversation? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I always have final thoughts. I always have final thoughts. My hope and desire for us as a community is that we become more aware, right? So just this platform alone is a resource for us to just become more aware about mental health and how necessary it is, and that we no longer have to normalize dysfunction, and that we can change our everyday lives, and that it takes one day at a time, and that you all are all worthy of health and well-being. So thank you for being here. We're excited to see you next week, Saturday at 11 Eastern Time, and Ray, take us out.
I think you just said it all. So I'm gonna leave you with that exit. Everyone, thank you for joining us. Be sure to come back to the La Familia Health and Wellness Center here in STEM City, USA, and we hope to see you again. And thank you to our sponsors, Boston Scientific. I must say that, or I get in trouble. So I'm just playing. I'm just playing. But no, seriously, everybody, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next Saturday at 11 a.m. Take care.
All aboard. Step up, ladies and gentlemen. Doors are closing. Good day, ma'am. Good day, sir. Thank you for boarding. Have your tickets ready. Next stop is downtown Chicago.
Unspoken promises are made forever, they're unbroken. No breath, no sight, eyes wide open but with no light. Everything about it seems so right. Darkness comes but I can feel you through the rain. The fire's still burning while I'm waiting for the train. The train, the train, the train.
All right, step up, ma'am.
You can't wait 5 minutes?
I have to close the doors. Is there...
Just 5 minutes more, please.
I cannot wait 5 minutes, ma'am. I am sorry. I got a load full of people to get downtown.
You can't work with me at all.
I'm sorry.